This is the background job improvements demo for the scalability team for the 6th of March 2020. Bob and Oswaldo, so far there's nothing on the agenda from you, but I'm sure you've done something this week that you could show us.
I could, but it's like as always, I haven't prepared. But
so I'll start with something real quick, and then we'll go from there. So let me just share my terminal. So we want to move, can you see my terminal okay? Cool, so we want to move Sidekick Cluster to be the default in core for everything. But one issue you have right now is that if you run Sidekick Cluster, it requires queue groups. So that's kind of annoying because like the whole point of it is that you want to select specific queues, and we have a couple of different ways of doing that now. But for the default case, which is, I would say, almost every GitLab instance out there except gitlab.com, you just want to process all queues. So now if you pass an asterisk, it will run all queues. This isn't actually merged yet, so that's why I'm on this branch. That works if the funky syntax is enabled or not, because it's not a wildcard. It just start means everything. Also, as part of this, I added a warning. So if you do like negate everything,
I was going to
error.
ask that.
Yeah, and also that's helpful for the queue selector syntax, because if you do queue select, say something like has external dependencies. Dependencies true and is false, obviously that's not going to select anything, and now that will also error, whereas before it would just start a Sidekick process that was doing nothing. So hopefully that's a nice little quality of life improvement there. So yeah, that
if you have that somewhere in Sidekick Cluster, like when you try to start Sidekick Cluster with an error like that, is it going to actually error out or just not start a Sidekick and emit the warning?
Right now,
on your branch.
On my branch, so on my branch, it stops the Sidekick Cluster process starting. I haven't tried this in Omnibus, but I'm pretty sure that's an error when you, because Omnibus like tries to manage the processes, right? So like, there's no Sidekick Cluster parent process started in this case because it's failed. So I think you get a pretty early warning in Omnibus for that case.
Yeah.
Cool. And then another quick thing I'm just going to mention while I'm here. So I was working on a dashboard. So we already have a histogram for CPU time for Sidekick jobs, but we just never added it to any dashboard after we added it. And we added it like months ago. But I'm also adding Gitly time and database time. So I was working on this, and the work Andrew's done on making this all available in Graphonet makes it quite nice. So the queue detail dashboard is the one I've added it to, and I added it initially as a heat map because that's what other dashboards use, but personally I don't find them very useful, and Andrew's colorblind and he was like, well, I can't really tell what a heat map is because like I can't see the subtle gradients, subtle differences in color. So this is just a line chart with a line for the 50th, 90th, 95th, and 99th percentile. And because it's in Graphonet using JSON, it's quite easy to, you know, define that I want multiple time series. Like, you know, these are the quantiles I want. I can just write a function that that generates those queries or those targets, I guess Grafana calls it, which have a query and a legend. So yeah, it was a nice experience working on that. And I also added a couple of things which are still in this merge request to make it a little bit easier to test this out. So before, like, you could test it out, but you had to get an API token from somewhere, and I'm really lazy about stuff like that. So if you run the test dashboard script in dry run mode with a specific dashboard path, it will just print out the dashboard JSON. So then you know, if you're on a Mac, you pipe that to the clipboard copy thing, then you paste that in Grafana in the playground folder where you're allowed to make changes, and then you just got your dashboard. So it's quite nice for going back and forth. Obviously, the API key thing is probably easier once you've set it up. I'm just super lazy about stuff like that, and I won't unless I have to. So yeah, so that was all really nice. You know, if anybody was a bit worried about making dashboard changes, you know, like if there's a couple of issues on the board and you see one that's related to that, it's not that scary. It's actually quite fun. So yeah, that's me. Oh, I'll quickly show you what the chart looks like.
It's kind of fun to type as well because it's so simple. Like it only spits out some JSON, which makes it really easy to test.
Yeah, exactly. And JSON I found a bit weird because it doesn't have great documentation yet. So like the standard library says like, you know, say I needed fold L, so like a reduce from the left side, and it was like, this takes a function. And I was like, okay, well, which argument is the thing I'm accumulating and which argument is the individual item of the array that's being folded? And it didn't say, so I just had to trial and error it basically. Which obviously there's only 2 cases there, so that wasn't too bad. So let me just quickly share this Firefox window as well, so I can just show you what it looks like. I mean, it's nothing earth-shattering, but just for the sake of demo. So it's this thingy here. So instead of the heat map, it's just, you know, this is what the each quantile of CPU time is for this queue, and then we'll have something similar for Gitly and database once I've actually done that work. But yeah, that's all my demo. Bob, oh, first of all, any questions, and then Bob, if no questions.
Okay. If there's more questions for Sean, then just interrupt me. Let me start by sharing my screen. I'm just going to share the entire thing because I don't know which windows I'm going to use yet. So I've been working on automatically not running Sidekick jobs if they are already in queue. So as an example here, I've marked the project import schedule worker as idempotent, which I think it is. Like we could even merge this, but need to go through that later. I'm going to stop Sidekick so I don't need to hurry when scheduling jobs. So let's do this. And I should have started the Rails console before the demo because now we can all watch this thing load.
I am positive it's faster on your laptop than it is on mine because my laptop's still the same one I had when I joined 4 years ago, or almost. So
mine's a year younger. And it has the thermal throttle thing, so we might be, because always at 90 degrees. And then I need to find a project that's a mirror. Actually, I don't really need to find a project that's a mirror. I could just do.
I love this, like coding while the or like preparing while the shell's still starting up.
Yeah, like typing as much as you can and only enter is necessary. So the first one will get scheduled, and the second one didn't get scheduled, and it prints out this nice error message telling it that it's deduplicated. That's the status, and it says it's a duplicate of the job that was previously scheduled. Interesting things about this is like we've uncovered a little bit of bee's nest of Sidekick logging, as John has seen me complain about. So right now this got printed here to the standard out of my current process. It would currently do the same if we were to deploy this branch to gitlab.com. And this is all well and good if we run this stuff from Sidekick. So if Sidekick server is the Sidekick client as well, if Sidekick server is scheduling jobs, then all would be well. But if we're scheduling duplicate jobs from anywhere else, the API or whatever, then we wouldn't see these entries inside the Sidekick index. We would see them in the Unicorn or the Puma index, which would make it very hard to like make statistics on how good we're doing with deduplication and so on, which is what I've also been working on this week. That was it for me.
So a couple of questions there. So like, from what I remember from the issue, it should only be not scheduled if there is a job that hasn't started in the queue. Is that right? Like if there's already a job that started, we don't look at those. We only look at ones that are queued. Is that right?
But maybe you can go through the strategies like thing.
Yeah, I was just about maybe going to show that quickly.
Cool.
So we have the idea is like during the in the issue we also discussed unique jobs gem somewhere that does a lot of fancy things. We were kind of reluctant of just including it because we can't easily play with it and gradually roll out stuff. So we have the idea of implementing strategies, and right now we have one strategy. It's called until executing, which means that we've got two methods to call. One is schedule, and for this strategy, most of the logic lives there. So when we're scheduling a job, we check if it's a duplicate. If it's a duplicate, we mark which job it's duplicate of. And then this is the new stuff in the merge request that's going to actually do the deduplication. If it's droppable, which means droppable means it's idempotent, it's a duplicate, and the feature flag is turned on. Then we're going to do what Cyclic wants us to do to not schedule the job. In the future, we could implement different strategies for this. For example, we have in a lot of jobs a pattern that is only execute this if you can get a lease. We could implement a strategy that does this for us, which could allow us to like just not schedule the job in the first place if something has already taken the lease, if that makes sense.
Oh, okay. I need to think about that a bit more, but that makes sense initially. And yeah, the logging thing is, yeah. Still need to think about that a bit more.
Regarding the strategies, I've created an issue. Like I think this one, the until executing that we've discussed before, is going to be the most important one for us. But I've created an issue, a P4, that we could look at because it could be like not from a performance perspective or an amount of jobs run, but just from a developer kind of happiness. It's easier to do it like that than to have to do this thing with the lease and the jobs. Otherwise.
The way to think about the first strategy, I think, is like acquiring a lock for the first job that's scheduling still. So the second one would be logged as a duplicate of, if it's a duplicate. So it acquires a lock, then release it afterwards. So it's kind of like the idea of locking, right?
Yeah, it is exactly like the idea of locking. But for now, like I want to do this in steps. Like first, I want this first merge request that's been merged already but not deployed. I want to see how many duplicates we have, which will be visible in the first step. And then based on that, you can see which workers are often duplicated and then try to make those idempotent so we can deduplicate them and have the most effect. Like that ties into the issue you created, Osvaldo, where we should triage the
idempotent workers. Cool.
That's it for me. I think your next issue is the one about moving Sidekick Cluster to core.
Yeah. So let me just quickly share this screen. Actually, it's just the issue itself. Epic. Most of my work was breaking down a little bit better what we had in the first iteration of like investigation part. So I broke it down in like releasing stages. So yeah, we can find a little bit more detail on each issue that we have in the Epic. But the idea is first like we need to move this the actual script, the Sidekick Cluster script to work and make reference of this script in every environment instead of being just EE. And then we are going to start using the script on GDK and make the bin background jobs script use the Cyclic cluster underneath. The tricky part of using this without using an environment variable is that it's also used in a source installation. So if you want to release your TDK but not use this in source installation, we need some kind of way to fall back to the previous behavior or just enable this behavior when passing an environment variable. So my proposal there was just using an var to change the script to use Sidekick Cluster instead of Sidekick directly. Maybe we can iterate on that and discuss a little bit more.
Should we, like, I don't know how many laptops that we have, but we could start 2 Sidekick processes just like, yeah. But I don't know if people
on DK, right?
Yeah.
Two processes. Yeah, that would be interesting to see the CPUs spinning a little bit faster for everyone. But yeah.
No, it's
I feel
not.
like. Sorry, go on.
I think like we can probably try it, but it's going to use too much memory or like just the development machine. The people that are developing in
the actual idea,
clouds and stuff.
Yeah, the actual idea is trying to behave like in production, like having more than one process. It would be interesting to try this, but we can put this behind the in bar as well, maybe. Yeah, source installation, that should be simple, at least I hope, because we already changed the script that's being used there. So we can make that change and use it. The omnibus is the tricky one. There's some investigation there because we have today we have two ways of configuring Sidekick. One is Sidekick itself, and Sidekick Cluster. And if we run omnibus today with both like enabled, you get all those processes. One should handle all the queues, which is Sidekick alone, and the other ones that I just used here, like passive to queues. And basically what we want to do is making the Sidekick main configuration spin the Sidekick cluster instead by default. So for instance, you have omnibus installation already running, and we are planning to reuse this configuration to run Sidekick cluster in that, instead of having to actually write the Sidekick cluster configuration. So the idea is deprecating the Sidekick cluster configuration to use these by default. That would be tricky, but that's the idea there.
I think Gav as well mentioned the other day that he accidentally set Unicorn and Puma enabled on the same host before, and in this you found out that it's possible to enable the regular Sidekick process and Sidekick cluster at the same time, which is also a thing we shouldn't let you do because.
To be honest, I was expecting that to work out of the box because we say that on our documentation that if you want extra Sidekick processes, you run this because that implies that you already have the main process, but you want other processes to handle other queues like.
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, I guess that's probably why it is. But yeah, that was surprising to me because I figure like, yeah, I guess I was just in a GitLab.com centric mode. But we have had a couple of or at least one customer or
Yeah.
user reach out and say like, hey, I would use Sidekick Cluster if you could set different concurrency settings for each process, because I want to run multiple processes handling different queues on the same host, which is not something we do on GitLab.com, but doesn't mean that's a totally invalid idea. It might work for their use case. So yeah.
Yeah. So that's the path for the omnibus, the idea. And the last one is Helm charts. I'm still discussing on the issue about Helm charts because the idea of running Sidekick on pods is that they would have one Sidekick process per pod. So if you think about having Sidekick cluster, one Sidekick cluster process to handle this on each pod, that wouldn't really make much sense because we would be like exchanging basically for the same thing. But still, we want to run Sidekick cluster, like make the new default. So it would be interesting to, as a last step, to also change our configuration on charts to point to Sidekick cluster. But I'm still discussing a little bit the details on that. Yeah, this was one point. Maybe you want to describe to the same thing. Okay, so I'll move to the next one. Someone wants to address something. Maybe this one would be interesting to talk with Jar, that was just looking at this. This is mostly related to using the continuous group profiling that we released on workforce web process for staging. And we were expecting a few environment variables there, like this service name, this service version, and overall project. And with that assumption, we just started the process passing just a small amount of, sorry, that wasn't the, we just passed this stack driver to the envar that we configured. I was thinking that we need to change this to pass service and service version. That would be tricky because we have different versions of like the word parse. I'm not sure if it would be right to have this here. Same thing the word parse version here. And the last one would be the Google Cloud project. That would be even more weird to have us there. I'm not sure if Jar has any ideas on how we could change maybe the environment to not have to pass these there.
Yeah, so you saw my comment. It seems like that these environments somehow. Okay, sorry about that. Yeah, so if you saw my comment there, it seems like these environment variables are only available on App Engine. So I think we'll have to set them explicitly. We can set environment variables, you know, in the config. So that's not a problem. We just need to know what to set them to.
But,
I think for the cloud project, obviously, I'm not sure like GAE service and GAE version. These are Google App Engine specific variables, right? And we're not running an App Engine.
All right. So that means that we would need to set these in production as well, right?
Yeah, I think we're going to have to set them explicitly. We know this works out. Are we sure this works outside of App Engine? Just, I actually haven't looked into it.
App Engine, I'm not sure.
Yeah. Okay. Well, this is something we need to dig into it.
Yeah, maybe we need to have another look because let's say if we hard code the version, workforce version for like the same version for every process, I'm not sure if it's going to work well.
Yeah.
On that. But yeah, we can start like just hard coding this on the environment just to test going to work well. So maybe you could do that in a bit, Jarvis. Yeah, just those three environment variables.
Yeah, I can do that.
Work
Can you
well
just
flat.
can you yeah, let me I'll just add my just add a can you ping me on the issue so I have a to do and just and then I'll but I probably won't be able to get to it today, probably Monday.
Yeah, that's fine.
Cool.
Cool. Then I just wanted to bring up one last time the thing that I plan on doing with the Sidekick log files and maybe explaining the situation the way it is now. So right now we have the Sidekick logs, which we read from like the Sidekick cluster standard out. That's like the process monitor provides that for us, and those come into the index. We also symlink sidekick.log inside the Rails log directory. So people running on a single node instance can see the Sidekick logs from within the GitLab admin panel. That doesn't make sense for us or anybody running something HA. So I created an issue to get rid of that. And for now, to get myself unblocked with the logs that I showed you before for the deduplication, I suggested adding a new logger called Sidekick Client that will emit structured logs if you've configured the JSON flag in gitlab.yaml or gitlab.rb in Omnibus. And then we'll need to update the nodes, all of the nodes in fluentd to look at that file and add it to the Sidekick index. Does that sound reasonable to everybody, or like is there something I'm overlooking? There's a comment I linked that is basically the summary of it.
So I think removing it from the admin UI makes sense. I think Jav is the person, but also there's a couple of I know Craig and Igor and McHale have been working on logging stuff as well lately because they've been sort of fighting issues about cases where our log schema isn't consistent between entries in the same log. So yeah, Jav, are you okay with that plan?
Yeah, this is, I'm sorry, I was only half paying attention. This is the plan to remove the logging from the admin interface?
No, that's
No.
like, that's part of the plan, but I've moved that out into a separate issue because it doesn't like,
Yeah.
If I start writing to that log, like we still need to add it to the fluentd and so on. And it's still not going to be, actually, no, it's still not going to be logging there anyway, because Sidekick by default logs to standard out, which is what we've been reading. But if we do that on the client side, like on the Sidekick client side, the thing that schedules jobs, that could be Puma or Unicorn. So then we would have the job log messages into the Puma or Unicorn.
Yeah, that's not great. I mean, it's also, I mean, it's okay. It's not like we can add, no, it's actually kind of crappy, right? Because we want all Sidekick logs going to the same index.
And I've paid attention to make sure that the messages look the same. They just like the same kind of payload with the job status and the message and the metadata and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And the reason we want them in the same index is because we cannot aggregate over indexes as far as I know, and we want to have statistics on that. Of the 100 jobs we scheduled, we skipped 50. Not that that's going to happen, but yeah.
Yeah, so I would say, so this is actually less of an issue when Sidekick moves to Kubernetes, because we're going to be directing logs. All the logs coming out of the Sidekick pod are going to go to a single index. And right now that is a mixture of Sidekick standard out and production.log, because you know, we have those two, and actually anything in var log GitLab, all like that comes from a Sidekick pod goes to the Sidekick index. So when we're running Kubernetes, it won't matter where you log to. Like you can log to I don't know, like in the Puma standard out or Puma
But
logs,
that's-
like
Isn't
That's
that a
kind of a
problem for us,
problem.
though?
Yeah,
Yeah.
because now I'm going to be writing stuff that is meant for Sidekick
Mhm.
on web nodes and stuff.
yeah.
On everything,
Oh,
every,
right, because this is on the front end. Yes.
yes,
The web node
everything that can
schedules the
schedule
Sidekick
jobs.
job.
Yeah, this is actually, yeah, this is sort of a problem. Of course, like with Fluent D, you can do anything. Like we could, if we can, although the log, yeah. So the way that Fluent D works in Kubernetes, right, is that we're looking at the logs from the pod. And they're like, and it's a mixture of everything that pod is logging, right? So we could always have Fluent D to kind of inspect what kind of log it looks like and then redirect it to a different index. That kind of sucks. I don't know, man. Like, yeah, that's going to be tricky. I guess for now on VMs, the best option, which I've already said, I think, is that like we just output to a separate log file.
Which is what I'm doing now.
So
Yeah, that's the best we can do.
So just so I understand, Joe, so the ideal with Kubernetes is that like we don't have to go inside the pod to find out what's happening. Like whatever the pod outputs in its logs is what we want to inject. Like we can do it the other way, but we don't want to do it the other way. Is that right?
Yeah, so we have a Fluent D daemon set. So we have like one pod per node that's running Fluent D, and it's looking at all of the logs that are being outputted by all of the containers that are running on the node. And so what we have is the container name, which we do like a glob for everything that's a Sidekick container, we put to the Sidekick instance. Anything that's a registry container, we put to the registry index. So yeah, I mean, and all of the logs, the way that CNG works, right, is that they just do like a tail of everything in varlog GitLab, and then that goes to standard out. So like all the logs are mixed together that come from, a pod.
Yeah, so I think we talked about this a bit before. So then there's the option like to make the standard output of the pod somehow tag, like wrap the JSON that it's like outputting and tag the index on what it wants to go to, right? Like that's
it's funny. Yeah, we could do that. It's potential we're going to have 3 layers of wrapped JSON at that point because the container logs are already wrapped in JSON. So I'm already unwrapping it once in Fluent D. So I might have to unwrap, but you can unwrap it as many times as you want. That's a possibility. Yeah, it would be better if we could just add it to the log message itself with some for our structured logs. Maybe we introduce like a type or a service annotation or something that, every log message will have this.
Yeah, I think so, because I was talking about this with Craig a bit the other day, because like one of the issues we also have is like, so we write to different log files from the application, and like one of those log files is writing response that's always an object, and one of them was writing response as a string, and that doesn't work because we're putting them in the same Elasticsearch index. But from an application perspective, you don't really know that they're going to go into the same index, and the reason you're putting them in different log files is because they have different shapes. So if we on the application side, if we were responsible for tagging them and saying like this is a log of this type, then maybe that solves like both those problems, because then we can say like, if it's this type, then it has this schema, or this, we're probably not going to define a formal schema, but like, we can assume that all the schema across all of these ones with this type is consistent at least. And then we don't have that issue so much anymore, because there's a bunch of concerns there.
It sounds like we want logger attributes or something like we have for the workers, so we can shout at the right, so we can talk to the right people if the structure isn't what we want it to be for a certain type of log.
Yeah, so Craig created an issue where he was like, we should, because we can like verify this, right? Like, I think part of the problem is we're still in this weird sort of in-between state where we support structured logging, but it's not required. And so you have to sort of think of everything twice, like when we supported 2 databases. So maybe we just need to finish up that first. But yeah, I think we should be able to verify like on the application side that like there is a particular schema that we expect this log to match. It's just a question of like, what do we do for unstructured logs? Like, what do we do for other stuff? Gets a bit fiddly.
Yeah, Well, it's a
And who
it's
does
a
the
ways
work?
off. It's a ways off yet. I would say for now, separate log file, we're fine. Front end isn't going to Kubernetes until after Sidekick, so I don't think we have to worry about it right now.
Okay, cool. I think that's everything we had, unless anybody had anything else they wanted to discuss. Cool. Thanks, everybody. I'll speak to you all soon.